And so, well, that's a lovely introduction between you and Tara. Although I noticed as you were introducing the part of me being flexible, I think you looked like you questioned a little bit. And I think that might be the relationship that we have,
I do.
is where I was your professor. So there was a certain amount of structure that was
Yeah.
required.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Wow, I love how you catch it. See, you are on top of your game today. I was gonna tease you about that, and then this is not the moment, Janice. But anyway, I am just super excited because I got the privilege to experience you with so many different hats, different roles, right? So initially, you were just the director of the master's program that I was about to enter to. And my first meeting with you was so awkward. It was during COVID times. And, it was just a little group of us that were just asking a few questions and whatnot. And you seemed so serious in that meeting. And you imparted like the fear of God in me. No, no, not really. But I remember I was like, this is going to be interesting. Then, so there is the hat. So he's the director of the program. But I arrive at school that day, orientation day, and you're in the front, and everybody's talking about, this is, every teacher is introducing themselves, and you use the word DVD. It's like the short for your name. Now, the moment that I realized all these young people did not catch it, that's when I realized how old I am.
Yes,
Because,
yes.
because
I believe I said a lot of people call me DVD because it's short for whether it's Dr. Van Dyke or David Van Dyke, and but the real reason they call me DVD is because it's antiquated technology.
yes,
And you smiled, and everybody else that was in their 20s didn't even know what a DVD was. And
exactly.
so it was humbling. So welcome to my world where I
Yes.
use stories. I talk about actors and artists from a different bygone years,
Yeah.
and no one knows what I'm talking about.
Oh my
Recently,
gosh.
I told the story about Ibsen, who's a playwright of Waiting for Godot. No one knew what I was talking about, and
Yeah,
so I have to watch more TikTok, I think,
mm,
to be more relevant.
yeah, me too. Well, I'm joining the club with you on that. So, but yeah, I was the only one who understood DVD, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm too old to start a career. But later on, I got to experience you as a professor, and then I freaked out when I found out that you were gonna be my supervisor in clinical work, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm dying in my seat. But all of that to say that, and it's interesting. One of the things, one of the common languages that we share, this whole idea of systems and how systems
Hmm.
work and the interlocking connection. But I saw this whole spectrum like a full circle. How I went from that first meeting of being like terrified, am I even qualified to do this, to enter into this journey? I mean, I am so old to go back to school in a second language and yada, yada, yada. And I was just having all of these doubts, to shaking hands with you that first day at school, then having short interactions that introduction, orientation day, then finding out how many classes I was going to be taking with you. That was interesting. And going from that to having conversations at our family dinner table about you, Dr. V. You were, oh, I gave you my own name. Like,
Yes, that's
I,
fine.
I was
Dr.
not
V is
calling
fine.
you DVD. There's no way, because that is from my culture, too familiar, too familiar. But it was interesting how even my family learned about family systems through you.
It was strange because you talked about me at your family dinner table. I
Yeah,
wasn't there,
no,
and so at the marriage and family therapy picnic, we have a picnic in the fall. I get to meet your children and your
yeah,
husband, and they feel like they know me really well. And I'm like, "Oh,
yes.
hello, nice to meet you." And they're like, "Oh, you're Dr. V," and I'm like, "What does that mean?" And it was lovely to see that you were taking the information that you were learning and sharing it, and that's one of the things I like and have grown to appreciate about you is you embrace new knowledge and look, how does it fit culturally, how does it fit in my maker kind of
Yeah,
career, how does it fit professionally in terms of the mental health career, you're a unique person in that you have ideas and then you look to see where that fits in all aspects of your life, even with your family, and that your family's having conversations about, oh, it's not my behavior is just because of my will, but my behavior is a function of all of our relationships.
Absolutely.
And it shifts then. It shifts the way we see the world. I do think it's similar to kind of an artist's idea of my daughter is a painter and drawer, and I don't know if that's the right word, but she draws in pencil and charcoal.
Yeah.
And she sees the world completely different than I do in colors and in what draws her eye. And my interaction with her gives a new robustness to my life because of our relationship. If it was just me, I don't know the difference between aquamarine and light green. They're all the same color to me. But for her, there's an emotion that's connected to color, and I get to experience that because of our relationship, not because of anything that I sense in myself. And I see that in you, Jeanette.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. V. You're so kind. I think one of the main characteristics that my family fell in love with, especially my husband, who had a great appreciation for you or still has, um, they we love in our family the word context, right? Because here we're dealing with a family that is completely mixed. So I am Afro-Caribbean, Roger is African American, and then I have a child that is a third culture kid. She was born and spent part of her developmental years in the Dominican Republic, but she is also a citizen of the United States, obviously because of, her father. And so coming to America as a little, you know, girl that is like, I was used to listening to this language, and now I'm here, I'm immersed in a different language, and I come with this set of characteristics, my big curly hair and, my big eyes. And, it was just experiencing the world from a complete different point of view and context, even for me as a mom, which is the reason why I am so excited that we're doing this today, because my hope with this recording is to be able to share, as May is, we're entering into a month that is, in my opinion, you probably experience a little bit of that, but it's a month of a lot of transitions. A lot of things are ending in May. We have graduations, we have people finishing college, finishing high school, transitioning from a program to entering into the real world. Then we have those of us that still have kids that are either in high school or elementary school, that we still hold full-time jobs. As they are coming out of school, we are still, facing how we're going to navigate the summer. Some of us are in professions, as you and I, that are caregiving professions, right? That require a different level of stamina and mental health, right? And we are artists and makers and creatives, and I couldn't think of a better time to just have this conversation with you about soul care, about where do you see, Dr. Van Dyke, like this connection between, soul care, relational and mental health, in the creative brain, because this is such an important topic, especially in the kind of like stress saturated world that we live today.
Yeah.
So I am super, super grateful that you took time to be with me today.
I am so thankful to talk with you and to get to talk with people that are more on the creative end of things, because I do think we're shaped by our experiences, we're shaped by the good and the difficult things that happen with the people around us. And I think there's unique gifts that people have. And so as we talk about makers, you had to explain to me, makers are creative. They kind of produce art, music, even theater, and they can do it in a commercial way. They can do it just for themselves, but it is a way of experiencing the world. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the literature highlights creative types tend to be more sensitive or more connected to environment, more connected to other people's emotions, and it's one of the things that gives them the superpower to express in different ways. But I also think if we're not careful, that sensitivity we hold on to, it can be a burden. It can be
Absolutely.
an inspiration, but it can also be a burden of, where do I let go of this, or how do I turn this off? And I think for
Absolutely.
artists and creative types, which I don't think of myself as, other than I'm a maker in terms of therapy. I think I'm an artist when it comes to therapy, but
Well, you have a podcast. I'm sorry, but you no longer fit into just that. Oh, I'm just a maker. No, 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 no. You are in the creative world now because you are a podcast host with your
okay.
lovely wife, Tara. So,
Well, I am a partner to a podcaster.
okay.
She I think would be the artist, and I'm comic relief. But I think that burnout comes, or kind of soul care. So on the science side of it, on the relational science, the psychological science side of it, we talk a lot about burnout. And burnout is where we're doing the things we love, and yet there's not a release of the burdens that we're carrying, or a discharge of space to rest. I think of makers and artists, they do residencies. Van Gogh is one of my favorite
Yeah,
painters, and he went to Arlo, he went to France from the Netherlands, and
yeah,
having a different environment was somewhat of a release. I think for him,
yeah,
it was actually trying to escape.
yeah,
Thinking he
yeah,
could run from his problems.
yeah, yeah.
And I would encourage makers in terms of soul care, of how do you connect to the pain, how do you connect to the fatigue, and express it, whether it's expressing it in your art, but maybe that's part of the tension. Then where are you finding cross training? So most
Yeah.
athletes think about their performance. Let's say a baseball player, they play baseball, they do specific trainings for baseball, but they also do running or tennis or swimming that's not towards their career, but it's
Mhm,
helping have a full functioning of the body.
mhm,
I think
mhm.
that's where soul care comes in for makers, is you are connected to the emotion, connected to the expressiveness, and needing to then also look at, where else am I giving and receiving in life that might not be making, but that is helpful, that will spur the making.
Absolutely. Wow. One of the things that I wanted to kind of collaborate there with is that, w- first of all, this word maker for me is fascinating because, as believers, you and I share the same
Mhm.
faith, right? We believe that we have the imago Dei, right? We are made into the image of God, and He is the maker, the creator of heaven and earth, and we can go in a whole tension with that.
Yeah.
But my point is, I feel like as makers, we are reflecting some of that
Mhm.
image back into the world. And when it gets tricky with burnout, Dr. V, and I think I can bring up, because this is public information, bring up one of the examples that I mentioned to you when we first met the other day about Tim Holtz. Tim Holtz is one of the biggest. I mean, when I tell you that, for me, being a maker for his brands, when he first reached out to me and told me, "Hey, I want you to be one of my makers," I had to sleep on it for 3 days because I was like, he got the wrong number. This is, I don't think is this real, right? Because when I first came to this country and I started buying products and things I started as a car maker, a scrapbooker and all of that, but then I discovered the world of mixed media. And it was a source of so much healing for me because, just like you explained, I was not having that relief, that discharge of this pent up pain and
Mhm.
unprocessed grief and unprocessed trauma, and even the migrant grief that you experience when you transfer all of your life, or like tiny, not all of your life, but tiny pieces of your belongings in suitcases to come to a new country and start all over again, right? And that's the time when I discovered mixed media. And I remember buying products that were made by him, stencils, inks, different things. And recently in January, so I was a maker for his brands for 4 years. And then in January, I noticed in December, I didn't get the invite letter. So of course, some things got activated for me there. I
Yeah.
had to process that. I don't think I'm being invited to be a maker this year. Maybe it's because I have been so busy with work and I haven't been making enough. What is going on? Literally, I was gonna email him when I just decided to wait. And the very next day, all the makers got an email saying, "Hey, we need to have a meeting." And it was in that meeting with him that he announced to us that he was no longer going to be making new products. Now, this man has a career, Dr. V, of 20 plus years. Just one of his brands, the brand called Distress, which is a set of inks and paints and all of that, it's been out in the market for 20 years. This is like a man that was consistent in his creative process as a designer. And all of a sudden, Dr. V, this is what I'm going with this. He came to the conclusion that, you know what? I am losing my
Mm,
creative spark.
mm,
These deadlines, because in this art industry, as makers and the designers, we work in collaboration. A new brand is coming or a new product is coming out, and he reached out to us and he's like, "Hey, this product is coming out this time. I'm gonna send you the product," and we
mm.
have to create in our own style with those products, submit it, send it, and then this is gonna be on a live release that 40, 50,000 people watch,
Oof.
right? So
Yeah.
it's the big pressure. I mean, I want to make sure that what I create is worth, in my opinion, of being seen that way. And so I remember, Dr. Vida, that day when he announced that, we were all in shock. We were like, you you're not making no products? And what are you gonna do with your time? He said, I'm going to create.
Mm,
I am going to attend to my creative soul. I have created
mhm.
20 years of products. We have plenty of products in the market. I want to have fun and play. I don't want to have to be limited and pressured by another deadline.
Mhm.
And in the moment, of course, there were a lot of emotions in that room. All of us 20 plus makers, we were just sitting there, and some of us were in tears, some of us were experiencing a wide range of emotions. But there was a part of me, the therapeutic part of me, that just thought, I'm so proud of him, because
Mm,
what he's doing is so countercultural. We live in a Western culture where you are to be producing
yeah.
constantly, and
Yeah.
you're not only to be producing things, but also to be producing money and making money. So he said, no, I'm going to put a stop to making new things, and we're going to have fun with what is already there. And what an example.
How brave,
How
right?
brave. That is the best way I can describe it, is how brave. And when that announcement became, public to all the industries, of course, as makers, we had to readjust, and now we have to, excuse me, we're making for different companies that are producing, still producing his old product. But it's just interesting how it shaped something in the industry, but it's also creating a sense of, like, he's setting a standard to when is enough?
Yeah. When
When
is it?
when is enough? When do I have enough? When do I make enough? And I think as makers, sometimes we are bound by those deadlines. And this right now, I'm making for three different companies, and there's product that is still have to be released, and that I projects that I have to mail, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I have a full-time job and all of that. So when you said, wow, soul care is in, like, oh my gosh, I gotta tune to that and not let myself be burned out by the deadline, in a
Yep.
sense, like, that's a challenge for me personally.
And being able to know what gives you that release, right? So
Yeah.
when you were in grad school, making gave you a release. Now
Yeah.
you're working as a maker. There might need to be something else other than your art that
Yeah.
gives you a sense of release. Maybe it's you and Roger taking a walk or
Mhm.
kayaking. So those are the things Tara and I like to do. We do things in nature and something that's not connected, but that fills us up, because I think
Absolutely.
makers are putting themselves out there, and on some level people are passively being interacting with them but not actively. There's not a lot that comes back to you. You put your product out there, it's uploaded on the web, it's uploaded on the platforms to be shown, and there's not a lot that comes back. And I think
Yeah.
a maker doesn't get a lot back from its from their
Yeah.
product. I think therapists, those in mental health professions, we're not in the relationship to receive. We're in the relationship to be helpful and foster growth through our relationship with
Mhm.
them. But it's an unbalanced relationship. I think both
Very
as a
imbalanced.
maker
Yeah.
and as a therapist, there's this unbalance in relationship. And so, where do you find balanced relationships? I have a group of guys that treat me not as DVD, not as Dr. Van Dyke, but just as David,
Yeah.
and with very little respect. And
Yeah.
I love it because I'm just a person. I'm one of
Yeah.
everyone else,
Yeah.
and I can be, and they're with me, and it's a mutual give and take. And the same thing when
Yeah.
Tara and I go outside for hikes or for kayaking, we're there with each other. That's why our podcast, that's why our business is with you,
Yeah.
because that's the space where we grow. Healing, as you know, in art is
Absolutely.
about bringing people with you into your experience.
Absolutely.
Therapy is about bearing witness to the suffering, being with, just like from our faith background, we see God with us. It doesn't necessarily mean the symptoms or the pain is going to go away, but we're not alone and he's present with us. And there's something
Yeah.
healing, life-giving, soul care about that ministry of presence or being with each other.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. This and again, that's one of the things that I love the most about your podcast. You and Tara are so authentic, so genuine, so real. You guys bring a new level of authenticity that I think we have lost the art of being authentic, the art of being with each other and practicing presence. I tell you that you know this. I don't have to tell you this. You just said it. That the work that we do as therapists is so giving. It's in nature. Is you're just giving. You're just not giving necessarily because you're speaking. In
Mhm.
fact, the idea is that you don't speak as much in therapy. You listen. You ask strategic questions and you sit with it. You hold space. But even in holding space, we are entering into people's pain, right? Into their
Mhm.
story, into their experience, which is one of the reasons why I decided to go for my certification as an art therapist practitioner, because understanding the science behind art therapy. So you and I have a word that we both love. You made it come alive to me in class. But even though I have read the book years ago when Josiah was a baby, it was not until I was sitting in your class that my mind just blew
Mhm.
up when you talked about neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it. I get it. The brain can adapt, it can change, it can create, it can reroute, it can rewire. I'm not stuck in this old way of thinking. I am not necessarily the product and the result, and I don't have to abide by all of the traumatic experiences that I have had.
Yeah.
I can change. I can, and so in neuroplasticity, we think about structural neuroplasticity and functional. And that's where art therapy kind of kicks in, because art therapy can tap into those areas of the hippocampus. How do you process memory and emotions, and how you said some things about memory in class that I don't want to get into it because it made me not sleep for like 3 days when you were
Well,
just
probably the most important part of what you're talking about is we get it, like there's biology that does have limits to us. We each have unique biology, but it's not a set state. Our biology and our environment work together, that there's constant change. And neuroplasticity is the effects that are happening as I interact with you and you with me. We change and
yeah,
our thought process change, and the speed of which we're able to make connections change because of myelinization and all of these type of things that are fascinating
yeah,
neurobiology. But you can see it in evidence around us, like old married couples. So Tara and I have been married 33 years. We we joke, but it's not a joke. We start to share a brain. Things happen, like someone walked by us yesterday, and we both had the same thought, and we weren't looking at each other, not giving any nonverbals. But then I said, I'm the one that'll say it first, and I'm just like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to play a game of guessing, looking at people and guessing what they're buying at the grocery store, and making a connection? And she was just like, I was thinking the same thing. The piece is that we've shared so much life together. Our biology and the way that we've been formed shares in memory, shares in thought process. You'll see old couples that have been married a long time finish each other's sentences. There's a beauty to it, but you can also get stuck, because if you only have the same experiences all the time, it doesn't bring anything new into the relationship. And so being able to, like we like to be in separate kayaks because we love being together on the river, but we like to divert and go experiencing new things that we bring them back to each other. That changes it. We also see later in life, right? Like when one of us will die, part of us dies with them because we've been wired together. And so this idea that this is just the way I am is really a culmination of all your experiences, all your biology. It's not determinative, but it does lead to a potential trajectory. And there's hope. The hope of neuroplasticity is new experiences can give us new ways of thinking, new ways of being, and get us out of the stuck ways. And I think neurologically, maybe relationally, and maybe in our art, there's times when we feel dry and feel stuck. And for you and I, as marriage and family therapists, we think of pathology as stuckness, a family that found a way of navigating things because of trauma, because of displacement, because of difficulty in the neighborhood. They found a way of functioning, and that's great. The context changes. And if we can't adapt and find new ways of interacting, it's going to be problems are going to show up. As an artist, you might even talking about Tim, right? Tim Holtz. There were certain ways he was doing things, and the environment was changing. His need was changing. How do you make systemic change and kind of find new ways of being and interacting and not get stuck? I love that about artists. When I see my favorite museum in the world is in Amsterdam, and it's the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. And the art display is set up from early in his life, his first painting, to his last. And you can see his emotional life, you can see his relational life, you see the shift in him as you look at his art, from his brushstrokes, from realist to a little less, to the swirling chaos that was in his body and in his soul and in relationship, that you see it on the canvas. He gives us that kind of glimpse of development of what's happening for him internally and relationally on the canvas.
Oh, absolutely. You think about Picasso, for instance, how asymmetrical his work was. I did not give myself permission to be, because I always thought that to be an artist, I struggled, even after being published in magazines, getting covers in magazines and all of that. I still struggle calling myself an artist because I didn't have an art degree, and I did not go to school to learn art. I'm self-taught, and I'm like, but one day Tim Holtz was showing some of my work, and he was specifically saying how Jeanette has such a precise intuition to how colors go together, textures that go together, what composition and all of that. And I love that he described me like that, because that is the truth. Everything I do artistically is basically intuitive, right? Which is the reason when I decided to go and get certified and just learn art therapy, to kind of add it to my, my box of tools as a marriage and family therapist, is that when I have that opportunity to sit with a client and intuitively sort of present, hey, we have this watercolor set, we have this paper, we have this brush, draw something about what you're feeling in your body right now. Just paint something that it doesn't have to come out as realistic or this or the other. It's just like what is happening internally for you. Then I have now the responsibility to interpret that, right? It's not just the idea that the client is doing that, is the process. We as marriage and family therapists, as a systemic therapist, we're focused on process, not content, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really important for me when I'm sitting with a client, when I'm sitting with even friends, just doing something. I want to show you Biggie. This is kind of a detour, but when this is my self-care, my I'm sorry, this
I
is
like
terrible.
Biggie. I like
Yeah.
Biggie.
So this, I drew this little guy, and then I say group hug, because with the little arms open, right? Because when we first moved to America, we came during the time of recession. And so my husband and I had to literally take turns to cry so that
Mm,
we will not cry in front of Abigail,
yeah.
because he will lose a job. We will move into a place and he will lose a job the next Monday. And it was like, oh my gosh, like we live in an empty apartment. It was just such a painful, difficult process to adapt to, coming from what we were coming from in the mission field. Though we were not rich, we were definitely not rich, but we live a decent life in community with others. To come from that to nothing and to actually have to struggle and figure it out alone was really painful. And I remember one day I said to Roger, we have to figure out a different way to do this, because we do not know what kind of emotions Abigail is experiencing in this process. She is experiencing loss as well. So
Mm.
I think rather than taking turns to cry and trying to figure out how to not fall apart in front of her, I think we should integrate something called group hugs. Are you okay with that? Like, I had to ask permission. Are you okay with that? So when we are feeling it, she might not know what we're feeling. She might not know how to express what she's feeling, but we can hug as a group and
Yeah.
just hold that hug for 60 seconds and just heal each other by just being with.
Yeah.
So I still put the question marks, at the end,
Yeah.
because sometimes I come from work and I am like, not in a good headspace. And like you said, it's not an equal relationship. It's not like I'm giving and receiving, though the client is impacting me, but it's not like necessarily I'm there to get my needs met.
Yeah.
You were big in clarifying that to us in class. And so I pull Biggie out and I'm like, okay, can we kind of
Yeah.
engage in a group hug? And that will
Uh,
be my soul care for that moment, for that day when I am just internally falling apart.
Well, and I love
So
that. I love that you use your art to ask for your needs. I mean, you
yeah,
did put words on it. It
yeah.
might even, I would love it if it was wordless and you just hold up Biggie and everybody knows that knows you. That's the message. Not
I,
needing to, not needing to be too on the nose with the words on there, but
yeah,
just a picture of Biggie saying,
yeah,
I need a hug. And
yeah,
how do we do that? We need to feel safe. Like you feel
yeah.
safe with Roger and Abigail. There's a sense of that we can do this together. We can be present. And that's the other piece of that. So there's the mechanism of being vulnerable, opening up and asking for what you need to have soul care and prevent burnout. There's also the need for a community, for people that you trust that you can be that way in. And I think one of the reasons why I was willing to talk to you and your folks is that
Yeah.
I think you create a pretty amazing community here of
Mhm,
makers to be able to do some education, to
mhm.
talk about what the important things are, and not do it the right way or have
Yeah.
all the answers, but be together. What a beautiful community you're putting
Yeah.
together here. Um,
Yeah.
and I wanted to say that there's a piece that you niggled in my head earlier
Yeah.
on is with makers. I don't know about makers, but with my daughter, she's the closest thing I know to
Yeah.
a maker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she taught me about unmaking. So
Woo.
she would paint. She was doing this amazing triptych, which is kind of an
Yeah.
altarpiece of
Yeah.
three panels, and
Yeah.
it was about our family, and well, it was actually about my family and the legacy that my family had on her as a little girl. And she was working through family of origin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so she painted in my family. There was my sibling died in an accidental electrocution, and so on this
Oh,
triptych, my daughter painted a tree that was with fruit and vibrant in a beautiful setting, and then a tree that was in a storm that was burned up, hit by lightning, and you saw the lightning. And then you opened it up, and it was the places that she's lived, my daughter, and it was a picture of her and my sister at the same age. And she wanted to talk about the pain and the joy of not knowing her aunt, but feeling connected to her aunt, but also the pressure of being a girl and the emotional pressure that she felt of surviving where my sister didn't. So all of this was at play, was
wow.
unspoken, but she did it in art. And I was like, it made me cry. It was a remarkable
Wow.
triptych. But I said, well, this is interesting, but I think I see. And she's like, oh, I painted first. I had just your sister's face, and then it didn't feel right. It wasn't right. So about a month worth of work, I painted over,
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
started and built. She didn't say start over. She said I built upon it.
Yeah.
So there was a sense of she was making, and the making was impermanent, but yet it was foundational to the next thing that she was
Yeah.
making. And this, I think, is an amazing gift that the
Mhm.
art community has for all of us, because that piece that you were talking about, performance and needing to market and needing to do something that's meaningful, that's out there, I think sometimes we hold so tightly to it
Mhm.
that we don't see the space for this moment was important, and I can unmake and make on top of that, and
Absolutely.
not have a loss of something, but it being
Absolutely.
foundational for something else. And I was wondering
Oh,
if you could tell a little bit. That's my weak understanding of it from a father who's seen a
yeah.
daughter do this process. I wonder about how much that resonates with you.
Oh my gosh, Dr. V, I'm trying to hold my tears, first of all, because thank you for sharing that with us. That's a very tender part of your heart in your story. And, I really appreciate that you felt free to share that with us. And I'm trying to hold my tears back because a lot of my art process is often processing loss. And so we have like 5 minutes left, so I'm going to speed up. But what you describe basically is the process of mixed media, right? It's like I don't have if what is the layers. One of my slogans in my art in my website is connection, creativity, and healing one layer at a time, because it's layers upon layers upon layers that you build, and you in each layer that you are put in there in that work. It can be a card, it can be a canvas, it can be a piece of wood. Whatever the surface is that you're working on is layers of your heart that you are leaving there. You're leaving different layers of you uh, impregnated in that surface, right? And like you said, you build upon that. And I want to say, Dr. B, and it is so, I'm trying to not grab an art piece that is in front of me right now to show you because it's the temptation and we're out of time. But when I look at this particular piece and all the different textures, there's been pieces that I created in an enormous amount of grief. And years later, I came back and I did something on top. Why? Because I'm grieving that differently now.
Mm,
Right.
mm,
And
mm.
one of the things, if we were to leave our audience today, I mean, with a simple thought is be you in your creative process.
Mm.
Care for you, care for yourself, because one of the things that Tim Holtz did for me is that he helped me build confidence in who I am as a creative, as a maker. Because when I first started making for him, my first two makes for him, I was trying to do kind of similar things that other of his makers did. He was not happy. He was not happy. And he told me, Janet, I invited you to be one of my makers because I actually love what you do. I
Yeah.
love your mixed media style. Just be you, do you. That's what I want you to do. And from that moment on, it's like I elevated the way that I made for him because he helped me rediscover and reconnect and kind of build on that confidence that I don't need the art degree. A lot of these people in this community, not all of us have art degrees, and yet we have had the privilege and community. I have taught classes for companies in the UK. When did I think that this little girl from the Dominican Republic will be teaching for companies in the UK? Never. That I will be in the cover of my magazine, not me, my work, right? But a piece of me, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of that is the process of, you know, like we were saying earlier, neuroplasticity, changing, adapting, being changed. And on that note, I wanted to say, Dr. V, and I'm not gonna cry because I always cry when I get to these moments, but you play a very significant role in my process of changing and adapting. I came to this program and you were not someone that I would have ever thought I was gonna get to connect with. I was terrified of you. I was afraid as heck. I don't know if that's part of the meta perspective, meta picture, no, building the anxiety, heightening the anxiety for the students. But all of a sudden, something broke inside of me. It was just a simple interaction we had where everything just melted down for me. And I just switched all of that fear to just admiration and appreciation and love for who you were. And I was finding out so many things in common. You were reading about Henry Nouwen in classes and C.S. Lewis and all of that. And so you were reading class and it was just like, I didn't feel like we were much different. Yes, you were the director, the professor, the amazing, you have an amazing career and accomplishments, and yet you are so human and so loving and so caring. And I think I was able to experience that. And believe it or not, it was a source of healing for
Mm.
myself in that
Mm.
process and in that time. So thank you.
Well, how lucky we both are that God brought us together and able to do life in that time and have those things. And
Yeah.
the beauty that you brought to questioning everything. My favorite thing I learned from you in class was where you would reverse things and you would actually, yes, you would make that sound and we would back up and just be like, hey, do that again. And so it was like, because you and I knew you were doing like a tape recorder and hitting the tape recorder and backing up. I think we're the only ones that knew that
Yes,
technology.
we are the only ones because that's the sound.
I find myself still occasionally going, let's back up. And so I'm
Exactly.
appreciative of you of helping me, even in lectures and professional things, to kind of be able to back up, slow down, try again. I think that also helps if we're free to do that. It reduces the burnout. It reduces the pressure
Absolutely.
that we can be a piece of work right now
Yeah,
and realize we're not a complete piece of work, that
absolutely.
God is working on us, and we have layers of paint and layers of media, and he doesn't give up or say, oh, now I'm done with David and I'm moving on. There's a constant making and unmaking that happens spiritually
Yes.
and relationally
Love
for
that.
me, hopefully for you. I want to show I don't have the same impulse control, and I'm
Oh,
actually going to show a piece of art, a
oh
piece
my
of making.
gosh.
So
I remember
this
that.
was a very precious gift I got that stays with me about our program.
Oh,
Began when I set it up around Isaiah 61 of being oak
yeah,
trees and being planted in the Lord and growing and developing.
yeah,
And I think that's what we've been talking about. This picture reminds me of you. The
thank
solid
you.
tree that's but not done yet and
Yeah,
still growing, and even in death of the tree gets cut down, there's product wood that's used as a legacy. And I'm
yes.
hoping that your makers see the moment and are able to focus in on the moment, but also telescope out and see there's a bigger picture here. We are part of a tapestry. We're part
Oh,
of an art project that
yes.
God is letting us
Mm,
paint with.
mhm.
And it is for a season, and yet it has some lasting effects. And
Yeah.
I'm thankful for our relationship and the lasting effects that it has had on me
Oh,
and those that come across my path. So thank you for having me today.
thank you, Dr. V. It's been such an honor and a joy, and I hope we can do it again in the future.
Pure joy to be with you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much, Dr. V. Please give my love to Tara, and this will be until next time.
Yeah.
Thank you.